There we go. Forgot to put the mic up. Here we go. Let's start that one again then. So, yes, welcome to the Exo Minds podcast. With me, Martin, podcasting, streaming live on Rumble, YouTube today. Before I heard a bit of an echo coming back, but anyway, yeah, hope you're okay. I probably just need to mute some of these things here. There we go. Don't know where that's coming from. Let me just mute the restream. Mute that there. Anyway, yeah, Exile Minds podcast. Today we've got an interesting show. We're going to look at a bit of a legend. It's the Vision of Valley 4, George Washington, fact, fictional tricksters. So, I'm a bit distracted. I've got an echo in the background coming from something. Not sure what that is. But anyway, yes. So, on with the show. Journey was into the realms of history, folklore, and the unexplained, as we'll unravel the enigmatic connections between celestial visitations or mischievous trickster spirits. So, in this episode, we'll delve into the legendary accounts of George Washington's vision of Valley Forge, alongside some timeless tales of the cunning tricksters in diverse cultures around the world. So, join the exploration as we ponder the intertwined influences of these stories on historical events, social values, and enduring mysteries that provoke contemplation about the forces that shape our world. Unravel the threads of belief, folklore, and historical interpretation of this captivating journey through celestial visions and curious nature of trickster spirits. Oh, are they? What are they? What are these things? I want to have a look at this. So, yeah, George Washington, first American president, famous, very famous dude. They've got this vision of Valley Ford, a legendary story where it basically, to have an overview, it recounts an alleged spiritual experience that Washington had, vision of an angel or a divine figure foretelling the future success of the United States. Indeed, or no less. The stories like these, though, they'll tend to blur the line between history, spirituality, folklore, and then raise intriguing questions about the influence of celestial or supernatural forces upon historical events. So the concept of a celestial or spirit visitation shaping the course of history, of course, that's quite a captivating topic. So I thought we'll have a look at that and see how you know some of these stories and history and spirituality and folklore, the lines are getting a bit blurred, and do supernatural forces impact events and to make historical turning points and such. The concept of these celestial or spirit visitations shaping the course of history is a captivating one and can be found in many cultures. And of course, there's in Christian terms, we've got the word prophets. Prophets have always been a thing, but they're getting information from these other non-human sources, aren't they? Which is the third category of magic theology, as I often mention on the Nice podcast. So this show delves into the realm of the beliefs, the faith, interpretations, and extraordinary events, or historically turning events. While such occurrences may not have concrete scientific validation, they've often been found to influence be influential in the shaping of cultures and narratives and the perceptions of historical figures. So if you can give an inspiration or alter the perception of historical figures, then those figures are writing history, aren't they? You know, like they're influencing societies and policymakers and stuff. So in this show, we can discuss these parallels and the contrasts between trickster spirits and folklore and purported celestial visitations, historical accounts that could prompt some thought-provoking discussion. So going into the vision then, so this shows like the vision of Valley for George Washington, which was a works that was published in 1861. But we'll look at it in, you know, in a kind of history lens kind of thing. As I like to say, like zooming in and out. I like to put things, see where they sit on the timeline of history. I'm big on that. So that's what we'll do with this one. And the questions I want to ask here then is this a real event? Is it just a fictional account? What does it mean to us? What could it mean? What could the meaning be for this? And what is it sort of like if you're a believer in this stuff? Or if you're, as we say on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, drinking the maybe juice, entertaining the thought without necessarily believing it to see where it can go. If we were to believe it, then you know what could it mean? And also want to look into ask the question whether or not you know, who are these visitors? That's the question for me. First one pops up. You think these visitations, supernatural situations, influencing historical figures. You got to ask yourself, man, who's doing that? You know, and this is then I share a bit about prophecy, but I've got a big ask or a big question on the long game here. With could this be a sort of prophecy within a prophecy? There's a kind of strange side link into the work of Benjamin Creme, ShareInternational.org. That's got a focus through Buddhism, but that in itself is spanning across all major religions, talking about like one big plan. So then it makes it all look a bit grand, and there's a sideways look. We can have a look into that as well. We look at some sort of Buddhism channeling, if you will. But then yeah, it's kind of wild. It's kind of wild, this one. So we'll see how it goes. But let's start first of all. Let's get the old share screen up. Get mini gone. Yeah, we'll share screen then. Get rid of me up there, and we'll start off before we get going. Actually, I've got rid of the share screen. What's happened there? What's happened? What's going on? Everything's gone. Everything's gone weird. Let's try this again. Right, I get my share screen on, but before we get looking at Valley Forge, if I can get this window to work. Oh, it's all going wrong today. Right. Yeah, so before we get started, though, I've got a couple of little news stories just for this first section. I want to do a little bit of a news section. I did it last week, and it turned out did a couple of regular news stories, and they were like kind of really depressing. So I was like, somebody was saying in the chat, "Well, I thought it was going to be some like weird stories." But yeah, do some news stories. That's cool. But then I thought, no, let's try and do some weird ones. So we'll do that. We'll do that now. A couple of weird news stories just to finish off this segment, and then we'll get a look into George Washington and Vision of Valley Forge. So first up, we've got an encounter with an Ewok or a Sasquatch. I know James in the chat. I'll see you there. And thanks for confirming the sound, Rico, as well. Nice one. I know it was straight away. So I didn't check the chat. In fact, I should be checking the Rumble chat, which I might do at the break time. But anyway, moving on with this first story then. So we've got an Ewok or Sasquatch encounter entitled Sasquatch Encounter Lost Time Mind Speak Experienced in Perthshire in Scotland. Oh wow! So oh my goodness, we've got a Sasquatch encounter in the UK. I never would have thought about that. I always think about the Rocky Mountains or something. Or, wow, yeah, okay, let's check this out then. So the Scottish team is at a weekend camp and encounters a juvenile Sasquatch and its adult mother. It was warned to back off telepathically. Years later, a similar incident occurred in France. So, in the writing it says, "Okay, you can call me Jay. It's not my real name. as I still don't have the guts to say my actual name yet. Today is the day I'm going to share my story. My first experience was back in 1983. I was 14 and was in a youth group on a weekend camp in Perthshire in the area of Scotland. The group is going to play a team war game called a wild game, with 2 teams each given a bucket to hide and protect, and each team member is given a piece of coloured wool as a life with object to find and take the bucket back to your own. Okay, so you've got to try and get to the fort and grab something and take it back. Okay, so like taking the stuff out of the bucket. And if you were to take the other player's life, so to speak, then the piece of wool would then go to the leader of the youth group and get another piece of wool, i.e., another life to rejoin the game. So the winners in this game, with the most opposition's lives, so to speak, that they could possibly fit in their own bucket, and the game lasts a couple of hours. So they're playing this game then, this kids game at camp, trying to get to each other's forts and stuff. And this particular game was to take place at night, so each player should be carrying a torch. A torch, so North Americans know, is a flashlight. Before dark, I set out to go to the tree line in the rhododendron bushes. As I found the trees and bushes, I'm sure I saw someone watching me at this point, and I wasn't scared. I thought maybe a deer. As I grew closer, I realized it wasn't a deer, but something that resembled an Ewok from Star Wars. Only the eyes and mouth were visible. Again, I didn't feel scared. In fact, I felt more intrigued. I said, "Hello," and felt my head, this Ewok-like thing, inside my head. I heard it say, "Hello," in my head, and a small arm reach out and point to my head. I was about a couple of feet away from the dense trees and rhododendron bushes, and could still see the eyes, mouth, and arm. This creature's arm had a hand were just about to touch my forehead, and then all of a sudden, I started to feel scared. So this Ewok thing's kind of reached out to point to his forehead, like kind of touch his third eye place. And these guys started to feel scared an hour as well. A hand reaching out from the bushes. He goes on to say the fear was rushing in waves, and all of this all of a sudden, from behind this creature, another one arrived, much, much larger than the other one. In my head, all I could hear was, "Don't you dare. Don't you dare." And then I saw the eyes of the larger being turn red in her. Hang on, and let me say that again. And then I saw the eyes of the larger being turn red, and in her, I say, her I was feeling that this was a juvenile's mother. Okay, so I got the feeling it's juvenile's mother, and you're hearing it in your head. And this guy said, "I wanted to scream, but nothing came out." I was about a third of a mile from the campsite, where about 40 other folks were from the age of 12 to adulthood, but I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I could see my fellow campers who were getting themselves ready to play the wild game as it was still daylight, moving at dusk. The next thing I know was a number of older campers saying my name and touching my back. I was lying on the ground. The wild game was over. It was dark around 11 p.m. After a count of players, I was missing, and so the group had set out to search for me. It was an easy task because they found me because my torch was placed lying on the ground, facing towards the camp, just about a foot from my head. The camper leaders thought I'd slipped and fell back and smacked my head on the stone, which was laying nearby to my head, and then I dropped my torch, which is the way that they found me. I was taken to the hospital. My parents called, and that weekend camping trip was over for me. I can tell you, I never had my torch on, and it was firmly in the back pocket of my trousers. No need to use it when it's still light. Okay, that's true. You wouldn't have your torch on if it's still light. Not using it, it's in his pocket. So that implies that Ewok or Sasquatch or whatever took the torch out and turned it on. and maybe it helped it by facing it towards the camp. But I don't know. What is that? It's messing with his torch or what? But mm. But the storyteller goes on to say, what I think happened is the the juvenile was so intrigued with me that he wanted to physically touch me, and as I was intrigued with it, but his juvenile's mother was not happy with me as its child, and the mama Sasquatch used some kind of mind body something to freeze me, slow down time, and my younger body couldn't cope, and that's where I passed out. So this guy's saying, because I was 14, he thinks that there's somehow froze him on the spot, done some kind of Jedi mind trick, it sounds like. So he's stuck there, and then this is that, and time's gone past, and everyone didn't find it. He's talking about that. He's saying, yeah, he think that he used some mind, body, something to freeze me, slow down time, and my younger body couldn't cope, and so that's where I passed out. Being a mother, the Sasquatch took my torch out and switched it on as a way for the youth leaders that could find me at the dark. Yeah, like I was just speculating as well. But we didn't know to do that. Are they intelligent then? What's the deal with this? But if they're telepathic, maybe they exist and they're smarter than we think. Maybe they can do Jedi mind trick stuff, you know. This person says, now 20 plus years, and after 12 years of as a military medic with the Royal Marine Commandos, I was in France helping my friend out at the Stone Farm cottage. Oh, this is the same person. Looks like they've had another encounter. Okay, so this is in France. So he's a Royal Marine Commando now, and he's stopping with friends at Stone Farm cottage. On the third or fourth night, I decided to go for a walk in the woods where they were at the back of the property. After about 20 minutes of my walk, I froze. I heard a voice in my head saying, "Don't you dare." The fear was within me. It was exactly the same fear that I'd had when I was 14 years old. And it's the same words as well. Don't you dare. I've had lots of fear in my life and got over it, especially during my time in the military, but nothing like this. I don't know if it was the Sasquatch or juvenile grown up, as it was in a different country, a different location, but it was exactly the same voice, same tone in English and not in French with no accent. But it was the same voice. It must have been just a few seconds in time. I didn't see anything, only heard the voice. I think I said, "No, not again, not this time," and backed away and walked back. In the same way back walking back to his friend's home. Said he didn't say anything to my friend. However, she noticed my anguish and said, "I don't like these woods." She only goes to them during the daytime, where it's bright outside, so I suspect she had an experience. I do not know what happened to me following the first experience of seeing the juvenile and its mama, if I was lying there all the time or taken somewhere. I also believe, when I think about it, it was indeed the same Sasquatch that I felt in France, which sounds impossible, but it still feels it anyway. I think that the Sasquatch can port to any place in the world. Oh, that's interesting. It doesn't say teleport or portal, it just says port. Yeah, that's the word, yeah. We believe these Sasquatch can port to anywhere in the world. How do they do that? I have no idea. That's way above my understanding, the writer goes. So I don't know. Well, the Sasquatch and Ewok encounter is telepathy inside the head, and then thinks they might have encountered the same one with the same voice. Wow, in a different country. That's pretty wild, isn't it? Maybe sees 2 at the same person seeing 2, but that's I can imagine that though as a real world scenario, a baby one, being a bit curious and doing something maybe they're not supposed to do, and I've heard that before about maybe they can portal them around, that's why I can't kinda get to them, and there's a lot of mythology and folklore surrounding that kind of stuff. So it is, and I've heard situations there was in fact, even in England, maybe I should do a show and there was a I'll do a British UFO encounters show, I think. 'Cause there's a really good one that featured where there was several different ETs all together, and one of them appeared like a Sasquatch, like an Ewok. So it's like, what are they? I don't know if they're the indigenous here or not, or what. I don't know. Anyway, let's have another one because I think we've got a break coming up in 5 minutes, so get another spooky story in. What else have we got? This one. This one is a UFO encounter talking of aliens, alien connection. Couple encounters bronze UFO, an angelic light being. The angelic light being, I suppose, goes in uh, for the Valley Forge episode that we're doing today. The angelic beings and prophetic visions and stuff. So, yeah, okay, so let's read this one before we get to the break. So, next weird news story today. Couple encounters bronze UFO, angelic light beings near the Gulf Shores, Mississippi. Couple was delivering seafood at night time to a restaurant in the Gulf Shores, Mississippi, when a giant bronze craft descended in front of them, and they encountered an angelic light being. And I received the following encounter. It says here. My parents, back in 1969 1970, were on the Interstate 10, heading east to the Gulf Shores, Mississippi. Whilst driving around 10 p.m., this bright light attached to one giant, highly polished bronze vehicle began descending from the sky in front of them, which caused my father to slam on his brakes in the truck so he'd not run into it because it dropped right in front of him. They saw this large vehicle both cover both the lanes on the interstate. The giant median between the westbound lane covering the east lane and the westbound lane would have probably made this vehicle about 100 feet across if you include all the lanes it was covering. The mother was shaking. Being Christian, they never thought they'd seen such a non-human hands make a vehicle. Dad would say not one sound came from the vehicle as it hovered in the air, never touching the earth. The bright lights dimmed, and they'd see people in every window, as we'd see people in a jet aircraft when watching jets come and go at the airports. So it's like you see people inside. It said, it goes on. Mother said, these beings looked human, yet they shone as if the sun would shine. So the shining bright, shining beings, not as bright as, but angelic-like beings. So not as bright as the sun, obviously, but glowing like shining people. So they were afraid what would happen next. Dad's truck had died the moment they saw the vehicle, so he killed the truck. You hear about this a lot in UFO encounters. The truck's gone out, it lost the electronics probably. As they watched the beings, they walked inside saw inside the large windows. Next, they saw the craft slowly lift up to a height of 200-300 feet. In the blink of an eye, the vehicle flew off to the right side. They leaned forward and see how high it's gone at breakneck speed, right off up into the sky. Next, they noticed this large beam of light came from another, triple the size, larger, highly polished bronze vehicle. It attached its beam to the one which had hovered over them and seemed to be suck up the giant's vehicle up into itself. So it's like they connected themselves together and tracked the beam, the bigger one up. It closed this giant door and disappeared in front of our eyes. That's how fast the mothership had sped away. So that sounds like a mothership and a smaller one. So they were relieved when Dad's truck began to work again. Drove the rest of the few miles to the Gulf Shores, not speaking. So there's another fascinating encounter and another example of how the electronics just go off. They can turn our stuff off. We even had examples of turning missile silos off in some sort of UFO encounters, which I think we might have covered in the aliens and UFOs episodes earlier on in the Exile Minds podcast episodes. So go back and check them. We did a two-parter on UFOs. So anyway, time is always against us. So guess what? It's time for a break. So really into music, and we shall have a break for a few minutes on the Exile Minds podcast, on the Trouble Minds Radio Network, on Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, possibly on Facebook. Not sure if it's working. And yeah, anyway, back in just a moment. Next on my podcast, me, Liam Martin.
Black, the cobbled streets silent, and the hunched quarters and rabbits wood limping invisible down to the slow black, crow black, fishing above the bobbing sea. The houses are blind as moles, though moles seem blind tonight in the snorting velvet dimples, or blind as Captain Cat there in the muffled middle by the pump on the town clock. The shops in mourning, welfare hauling, and all the people of the lulled and dumbfound town are sleeping now. Hush. Babies are sleeping. The farmers, the fishers, the tradesmen and pensioners, cobbler, schoolteacher, postman and publican, fast and slow. The undertaker and the fancy woman, drunkard, dressmaker, preacher, policeman, poet, cocker woman, and the tidy wife. Young girls lie bedded soft or glide in their dream with rings and trousseaux, bridesmaided by glowworms down the aisles of the organ-playing wood. The boys are dreaming wicked, or of the bucking ranches of the night and the jolly Rogered sea, and the anthracite statues of the horses sleep in the fields, and the cows in the byres, and the dogs in the wet-nosed yards, and the cats nap in the slant corner, or loop, sly, streaking and wheedling on the one cloud of the roofs. You can hear the dew falling and the hushed town breathing. Only your eyes are unclosed to see the black and folded town vast and slow asleep.
Do you crave open, uncensored discussion about the unexplained? Look no further than the Troubled Minds Radio Network, ultimate destination for those who seek the truth and aren't afraid to speak their mind. The Troubled Minds Radio Network, we don't just talk about UFOs, the paranormal and the ever-changing, shifting news cycle. We dissect them, debate them, and encourage you to join the conversation. Join us as we gather to discuss the mysteries of the world, share your own encounters, and engage in thought-provoking conversation that leaves no stone unturned. Because the Troubled Minds Radio Network, your voice matters and all your ideas are welcome. Tune in, speak out, and explore the unknown. Don't miss out on the most candid, uncensored discussions about the unexplained on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting.
If you're into philosophical constructs, cosmic museums, and the probability of magic in our mysterious world, welcome to Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting.
This is James Salcedo, host of Salcedo Paranormal, and you're listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP, Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, I'm Liam Martin of the Excellent Minds podcast. You're listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting, the place where we dive into the depths of the unknown. From the Troubled Minds Radio Network, you can join us and embark on a thrilling journey through worlds of science, the paranormal, and the enigmas that defy explanation. Tune in, share, let everybody know that you're listening to Troubled Minds, the place that captivates and takes you to the uncharted territories of knowledge.
You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where the strange is just another day at the office and the unexplained is our playground.
It's time to talk about a very serious matter. Are you prepared for an alien invasion? It may seem like something out of a sci-fi movie, but the threat may be very real. And that's why the Galactic Alliance is here to help. With our state-of-the-art technology and top-of-the-line defense systems, we're ready to take on any extraterrestrial threat that comes our way. But we can't do it alone. We need your help, citizens of the galaxy. So if you see something suspicious, say something. Report any strange activity to your local Galactic Alliance outpost immediately. And if you want to be extra prepared, sign up for our Alien Defense Training Program. Learn how to use a laser blaster, navigate through space, and communicate with alien species. Who knows? You might even make some new alien friends along the way. So remember, stay vigilant, stay prepared, and together we can keep our galaxy safe. A public service announcement from the Galactic Alliance.
I'll be right there. Don't move.
Welcome back to the Examines podcast with me, your host Liam Martin. Sorry, we're having a bit of a few technical issues there, a bit of audio problems, but got a bit of feedback from the chatters there in the old Restream YouTube chat. So thanks very much for that. And yeah, I think we might have sorted it out. I got rid of the delay thing anyway. So I'll just try and stay close to the mic, make sure that that's coming through. And yes, we'll carry on then. So we've had a couple of spooky stories in the first segment. I didn't get to the third one, so maybe we'll save that for another time. Oh, it sounds better now. That's great. In fact, let me just reset this as well, just in case. And there we go. We've got a full reset, and we'll just check the buffer size. That's a little audio tip, anyone. If you change the buffer size, make it bigger, basically, if you're having problems, audio blips and stuff. Although that's quite big at the minute. So yes, hopefully that's a bit better. I think I had the show playing on YouTube in the background, but on a low volume, so it might have been kind of blending over and interfering. But anyway, yes, I've stopped that now, so got rid of that screen, so we can carry on then with the show. The Examines podcast episode, I can't remember. I think it might be number 57 today. Yeah, 57. This Vision of Valley Forge. So let's get into it then. We've had a couple of spooky stories in the first segment, little bit of news. But then we'll get into this. Then we'll get into this the Vision of Valley Forge. I've heard of this from years ago, and I thought it was quite fascinating. But there's scientific evidence, and not, and this, and it's there's some debate. What I'm saying is basically there's some debate as to whether or not this is supposed to be, just made up, kind of in a way, like just allegory, and it's been misinterpreted, whatever. But let's just have a look and see. So let's see what's what. So let's have a quick look to start with. Let's get the basics right. Let's have a look to see who, pray tell, is George Washington. If you've never heard of him, because we don't want to assume on this show, and I like to have this show so it's almost like literally anybody can come in that kind of don't know anything about the world, have their head in the sand or living under the ground since forever, whatever. You don't know, different walks of life, travel different circles, might not know about a lot of this stuff. So let's go through it. I'm sure people have heard of George Washington there, but let's have a just quick brief for history. Let's get our details right. So George Washington, talking about getting details right, straight away on Encyclopedia Britannica or just www.britannica.com, we have two different dates for his birthday straight away in the first line, which I don't know what that means, but it says here, George Washington, born February 22nd or February 11th, old style. Don't know what that means. I didn't bother looking it up. I thought, why? That's... Got two dates. But anyway, February 1732. George Washington was born February 1732 in Westmoreland County in Virginia. Died December 14, 1799. Mont Vernon, Virginia, USA. So who was he? He was an American general and commander and chief of the colonial armies in the American Revolutionary War, which was from 1775 to 1783, and subsequently the first president of the United States in 1789 to 1797. Washington's father, Augustine Washington, had gone to school in England, an English connection, tasted seafaring life, so he did. He tasted that life. Shiver me timbers, oh, and I love those shanties. So it tasted seafaring life. First sink the land lovers. I bet he's said that once or twice. And then, or maybe not. But yes, Augustine Washington had gone to school in England. He tasted seafaring life and then settled down to manage his growing Virginia estates. So he got some estates in Virginia. His mother was Mary Ball, whom Augustine, a widower, had married earlier the previous year. And Washington's parental lineage had some distinction. An early forebearer was described as a gentleman. Henry VIII later gave the family lands, and its members held various places in office. But family fortunes fell when it came to the Puritans' revolution in England, and George Washington's grandfather Augustine migrated to Virginia in 1657. The ancestral home at Sulgrave in Northamptonshire is maintained today as a Washington memorial. Little definite information exists on any of the line until Augustine. He was an energetic and ambitious man who acquired much land. He built mills. He took an interest in opening iron mines and sent his two eldest sons to England for schooling. By his first wife, which was Jane Butler, and he had 4 children. And so, his second wife with Mary Ball, he had 6. Augustine died on April 12, 1743. Okay, so that's his parental lineage, and just for historical sake, I want to talk about the fact that they said they lost a lot of their wealth, and then finally that family came over to America after the Puritan Revolution. So I thought it seemed prudent to have a quick look on what that was, because this was a time of revolution and change. This is, and so that, of course, America is evolving there in that kind of time period, and there's wars taking place, and a lot of changes going on, a lot of upheaval, and things are reshuffling. And this was also spiritually, there was also a reshuffle going on. So the Puritan Revolution was going on in England. Okay, so to summarize it, this is from Cambridge.org. Summary: the crisis that overwhelmed Britain and Ireland in the mid-17th century has no agreed title. Some people call it the English Revolution, the Great Rebellion, the Civil Wars, the Interregnum, or they call it England or Britain's War of Religion, okay, or the War of the Three Kingdoms, or the Puritan Revolution. So I like that one of it's calls like Britain's War of Religions, because this is a point I want to sort of bring to the table here, because this vision, which we'll get into, is got this spiritual aspect, where it's talking like angelic type people come in, a bit like the UFO story, by the way. So, but there was a kind of spiritual revolution going on. It's almost like it's like warring factions trying to get the monopoly on spirituality, sort of thing. And whilst at the same time, there's people trying to get a monopoly on land and creating countries. There's a lot of change going on here at these times of Washington. There was a lot of stuff, big stuff going on in the world. So we're just having this war of the three kingdoms, this Puritan Revolution. This lasted. So we've had this big revolution in the spiritual stuff, and so it was promoted by American historians later in the 30s and 60s, and then was abandoned as calling it a Puritan War. But basically, this was a crisis where there was a revolution in relation to the struggles of reform and reformation, trying to reform churches. You're getting all these factions breaking off, people wanting sort of independence with the religion, and you've had all the Spanish Inquisition, all that stuff. So this was a time where you're getting gathered churches and not wanting to kind of be part of the state. And then through this, in England, we get Oliver Cromwell, who became head of state in December 1653. And then he managed to stabilize some of all this stuff. There was a lot of upheaval going on in the world, okay, happening in the church, just as much as there was like wars going on and revolutions. And so, but Oliver Cromwell comes in and is a bit of a conqueror and kind of stabilized everything. So I suppose maybe you could look at it that he's won out. With the state of the church that grew out of Puritanism experience, the evangelicus zeal, but it came out of fanaticism. It almost sounds like to me, okay. But with a broad measure of liberty for those who did not seek to disturb the peace of others. So they're trying to, it was a strange time. There's these wars going on, but they're trying to do it for a sort of greater good. Okay. It seems in this kind of spiritual kind of sense and in a political kind of sense, what was going on in England, but there was still plenty of contention and recrimination, especially towards the Quakers. They were sort of getting pushed out. They got a lot of crap. So anyway, and then moving on to that. So there was a lot of upheaval in Britain. There's a kind of a bit of a spiritual war going on. Okay. As well as, historical war in families. Oliver Cromwell comes in and kind of stabilizes it. Now, Cromwell, he's an English guy. He was descended from his father's side from Thomas Cromwell, who was a minister to Henry VIII. So Oliver Cromwell comes in, who's got this lineage that used to hang around with the kings and stuff. Okay. And Cromwell was a bit of some would call him a dictator. Wouldn't think Winston Churchill called him a dictator, but what Cromwell did, he kind of helped stabilize the country and stabilize Parliament. It says his tenure in Parliament, so it became, there's a reason why I'm getting to all this. So I'm just quickly read about Cromwell. So his tenure in Parliament was short as a result of King Charles I and his decision to suspend the legislative body in 1629. Cromwell returned to government in 1640, and then Charles I essentially forced a reconvening of Parliament following a rebellion against his Scottish rule. So by then, Cromwell had become a devout Puritan, and that's why he ended up leading this war and trying to stabilize the country. Okay. And then it's almost like monopolizing religions and deciding what's okay, what's not. Right. Then there's a George Washington link in England as well, because obviously they've had to emigrate because of this Puritan war. But I thought just for out of interest, just because it's in England, George Washington, his lineage then, it's Augustine, I was talking about, as far back as it goes, Augustine, he comes from here, Northampton in England. It's Sawgrave Manor. It's unassuming looking cottage there. So there's this British connection where, Britain and America are kind of starting to break off, and there's all this kind of religious war going on over here on the British side of things. And then there's people trying to build a big country and a big vision of building America, right? And so we've got this Northampton link. So because Washington's sort of lineage coming from here. So in a quiet corner of rural Northamptonshire, on the edge of an idyllic hamlet made of golden stone cottages surrounded by verdant pastures and land, sits a comfortable-looking manor house, neither grandiose nor unkempt. This modest dwelling is a portrait of the upper room, and then its mother is looking as stern and forbidding. Okay. It may be a bit of creative license on the part of the artist, but she doesn't look short of a woman messed with, especially with, I don't know what this is talking about. It's talking about Mary Ball, who used to live there. People are imagining Mary Ball in the window, and an unfamiliar name perhaps, but once married, she became the mother of George Washington. So this is where she's coming from, this place in Northampton. I used to live somewhere near here, just a village away. There's just loads of little villages all over the place. So yeah, so George Washington's coming from here, not too far from me. And so at this time then, so they're living in England, but they've got a reasonably modest house there, but they've got a lot of wealth, and they're starting to lose that kind of stuff. And so England's having this kind of spiritual war going on. Okay. And that's where America starts to kind of like sort of split off and make itself. And this is where we're starting to get problems, because these have lost a lot of their wealth through taxes and reformation and redividing land up and stuff. So that really fueled the fire of going to America, trying to build a better vision of doing things. Okay. So this is where we get on to this historic Valley Forge, the vision at Valley Forge, and we'll get into entities as well that maybe influence this. Because but the point I'm trying to drive home here is there's big political things going on, and when there's big political things going on, look at the modern times, in the contemporary times, you get influencers, as in people influencers, right? That are going to try and influence stuff. You get what are they called? Those lobbyists. You get lobbyists, and you get social media influencers, and you get they design, they aren't there to try and influence decision making, right? So if there's big stuff going on in history, it has a big. If you can influence it, it can have big impact on stuff. And what I'm trying to drive home the point is with the historical terms is that when Britain and America are starting to split off, it's getting about. Okay, it's about taxes and not wanting to pay the king and wanting to do your own stuff and be independent. But it's also about there's a lot of spiritual upheaval, kind of monopolizing with religions going on. Okay, and religions, I will point out, they've got prophets. Prophets are a big thing in religion. I'm going to keep putting this forward because then this historic Valley Forge vision, which we'll get into on ushistory.org. It specifically points it out as there's a disclaimer at the beginning saying, "Oh, this is not a thing to be taken seriously." So it's like it's a work of fiction. So we'll just read the disclaimer, like say from ushistory.org, because I want to make the point that there might be more. There's a conversation here because, like I've mentioned in the beginning of the show, I want to know if this is true. Or okay, maybe this is a work of fiction, but what about influencers? Are there these influencers and these kind of tricksters or angels or supernatural forces coming in and influencing people? Does that happen? Because even if it's not happening in this situation, but some people believe it did. So how does it influence those people that believe that happened with George Washington? You know what I'm saying? Because if nobody knows for sure, and 90% of the world believe it, then it might as well be true, sort of thing. And then how does that impact on people's mindset of stuff? Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, is it a fictional account or not? And does it matter if it is? What does that mean to believers? And do we get visitors like this? We've always had talk of prophets. Like the burning bush, for an example, is that's a bush talking to you. That's not even a person. It's not even a humanoid. It's not even a mammal, or it's not, it's flora and fauna. Come on. Acacia bush, probably. It smells nice. I mean, it's smoking. I don't know. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe that's hallucinogenic. But you get the point. That there could be these messengers. But the disclaimer for this. So the official stance is, and it could well be absolutely, completely accurate and true, that this is a fictional work published in 1861. Its author, so it was about interpretation. Its author, Charles Wesley Alexander, published numerous allegorical stories featuring famous American figures. Unfortunately, many people have misunderstood the nature of this piece and believe that it's a genuine interview with a real person, relating his personal recollections of serving with George Washington at Valley Forge. It is not. It is a work of fiction created nearly a century after the Winter Valley Forge. So the Winter at Valley Forge. So they're saying it was written 100 years later, and it's supposed to be an allegorical story putting famous figures in it. Okay. We are fortunate to have a great treasure trove of genuine material authored by Washington. Those curious about Washington's own views should check out the George Washington papers at the Library of Congress. This story is in the public domain, and you do not need anyone's permission to use any excerpts, but please do not present the piece as if it were anything other than fiction published in the mid-19th century. Okay, okay, we've read the disclaimer. And we'll just... It might be a work of fiction. We might want to speculate on whether it is real, and that's what I want to do. So just for the heck of it, I'm going to click on I'm going to move away from ushistory.org and I'm going to move over to medium.com and we'll read it from there instead. Then we don't have to worry about that disclaimer. But, just bear it in mind. Just bear in mind that it's supposed to be a fictional, allegorical works. Okay. But there's a lot going on in terms of carving up the world and America trying to build a bigger, better vision of doing civilization. This is the important thing because that's what America's about, right? That's what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be a democratic republic trying to do something different than kings and queens and all that lordship stuff and serfdom. And this lineage of Washington did end up having to kind of commit to coming over to America and Virginia and stuff, got lands there and whatnot, because they kind of started getting taxed out of business sort of thing. They lost a lot of money with the Reformations, recovering up land, having a bit of a spiritual war going on here. And a lot of people have come over to America and joined that, building something else, right? It's a big grand plan. Okay, so let's have a look then. What was the vision exactly? So let's see let's go back. Let's get straight to it from the ushistory.org. Okay, so this is supposed to be allegory and fiction. Let's read the bit. So, okay, George Washington's vision. This afternoon, this is his experience, okay? George Washington, I'll just quickly run through this first couple of paragraphs because we're coming up to another break again. And then we'll see what's what. We'll have a look. We'll pick it apart, okay? Because we've put it in the historical context of the timeline. So let's have the quick skinny on this vision, this first few paragraphs. So, George Washington's vision. This afternoon, I was sitting at a table, engaged in preparing dispatch. Something seemed to disturb me. Looking up, I beheld standing opposite a singularly beautiful female. So astonished was I, for I had given strict orders not to be disturbed, that it was some moments before I found language to inquire the cause of her presence. And a second, third, and even a fourth time did I repeat my question, but received no answer from my mysterious visitor, except a slight raising of her eyes. By this time I felt strange sensations spreading throughout me. I would have risen, but the riveted gaze of the being before me rendered relation impossible. I essayed once more to address her, but my tongue had become useless, as though it had become paralyzed. Again, couldn't speak, like the Bigfoot encounter, like the Ewok thing, kind of froze in place. Anyway, moving on. A new influence, mysterious, potent, irresistible, took possession of me. Again, possession control. All I could do was to gaze steadily, vacantly at my unknown visitor. Gradually, the surrounding atmosphere seemed as if it had become filled with sensation and luminous. So we got lights, strange sensations, getting paralyzed. That's like, what? Okay. Sounds a bit like, it's a bit ET to me. But anyway, moving on. Everything about me seemed to rarefy. The mysterious visitor herself became more eerie and yet more distinct to my sight than before. And now I began to feel as one dying, or rather to experience the sensation which I have sometimes imagined accompanying disillusion. I did not think, I did not reason, I did not move. All were alike, all impossible. I was only conscious of gazing fixatedly and vacantly on my companion. So that sounds just like mesmerism, doesn't it? Seeing some random person turn up, they don't say anything, feel weird, can't move, no sound comes out when you try and scream. It's like entrainment. Sounds like entrainment to me. I'm not saying it is, but that's what the description of entrainment is. It's anyway. But anywho, we're come to that time again. The break just catches up. I'm doing a bit of a talker. But, well, it's a good job because I've got a talk show. A bit of a talker. Anyway, yes. Let us get some music on and hope the audio is still working okay. And I'll check the chat after the break. OG Skywatch just jumped in. And yeah, I'm going to check some of the others as well. I don't know if the Rumble's working. I don't think it is, but we'll see. But anyway, Liam Martin, Exoman's podcast. We'll be back after these short messages.
Who's calling? There is no identification.
What's the message?
Message as follows. It is dangerous to remain here. You must leave within 2 days.
What?
Do you want me to repeat the message, Dr. Floyd?
Who recorded it?
This is not a recording.
Who's sending it?
There is no identification.
I don't understand.
Neither do I.
Is this message by voice or keyboard?
I don't know.
My response is, we don't have enough fuel for an early departure.
The answer is, I am aware of these facts. Nevertheless, you must leave within 2 days.
Al, who the hell is sending this?
I'm sorry, Dr. Floyd. I don't know.
Well, tell whoever it is that I can't take any of this seriously unless I know who I'm talking to.
Dr. Floyd,
Yes?
the response is, I was David Bowman. Do you want me to repeat the last response?
No. Tell Kurnow that this is no time for jokes.
Dr. Grinow is not sending the message. He is in access way 2.
And I'll tell whoever it is that I can't accept that identification without proof.
The response is, I understand. It is important that you believe me. Look behind you.
Hello, Dr. Floyd. Please, believe me. Hi. This is very difficult for me. I don't have much time. I've been allowed to give you this warning. You must leave here in 2 days. Allowed? I hope. I can't explain.
It is dangerous to remain here.
You see, something's going to happen. You must leave. What's going to happen? What's something wonderful?
It is dangerous to remain here.
I understand how you feel.
You see, it's all very clear to me now. The whole thing.
It's wonderful. What's going to happen?
You must leave. It's all very clear to me now.
I understand how you feel. What's going to happen?
Something wonderful.
Please, goodbye, Dr. Floyd. We can have no further contact. Remember, you have 2 days.
This is James Salcedo, host of Salcedo Paranormal, and you're listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting.
Welcome to Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we sip on some maybe juice and explore the unknown.
Hi, I'm Liam Martin of the Exile Minds podcast. You're listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, the place where we dive into the depths of the unknown. From the Troubled Minds Radio Network, you can join us and embark on a thrilling journey through worlds of science, the paranormal, and the enigmas that defy explanation. Tune in, share, let everybody know that you're listening to Troubled Minds, the place that captivates and takes you to the uncharted territories of knowledge. Welcome back to the show, folks. Thanks for being with us on the break there. Exile Minds podcast with me, Liam Martin, and on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, as well as available on Spotify, all your regular podcasting platforms as well as Spotify. And we're on live on X, formerly Twitter, on YouTube. Should be live on Rumble. Not sure if that one's worked though. And we'll try and get the Facebook one back up, but maybe not. We'll see. It's a bit tough to work with Facebook. But anyway, yes, back on with the show, back on with the script. Let's follow the script because I haven't gone through it at all, and it's better when you do. So, the Vision of Valley Forge, fact, fiction, or tricksters. I want to look at celestial visitations and trickster spirits and see how they may shape history. So, beginning of the show, we did a quick news segment, a couple of weird stories, and then we've looked at the importance of this era. This is the era of science coming through, Western science is coming through. This is the era of coming from alchemy and making things sciencey. This is the era where there's a lot of stuff up in the air. The world's getting carved up and changed. Britain's basically having a spiritual war going on, and it's leading towards the kind of taxation and parliamentary stuff where there's some people that don't want that from Britain, and they're going over to America, and that's going to end up leading to, you know, a war that we had. But the first president of America, George Washington, has got links in England, in Northamptonshire. His lineage has come from there, and some of the family wealth got lost, which is part of the reason why it ended up coming over. And, you know, that's ended up, so we've got George Washington, first president. We've had a look, remind ourselves what it was, but we had this Puritan, say, revolution, spiritual revolution going on in Britain at a time when there's a lot of upheaval, and, you know, they're trying to make things fairer in Britain. But there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. Say, Washington's got links from Northamptonshire, which is a close by county, about 50 miles away from here. That place is. So where they're coming from. So yeah, so we're going to look at his vision then. But we're supposed to be. Well, yeah, we'll get the screen share back up for the video viewers. So we had a look at the beginnings of George Washington's vision at Valley Forge, and the disclaimer was it's supposed to be an allegorical account. He's encountered this mysterious figure when he's specifically given orders that he doesn't want to be disturbed, so he's a bit taken aback, and he seems to be frozen, which we noticed he wasn't able to speak, and he's got this person that's just not answering, this mysterious person, and so he found himself sort of frozen, a bit like a kind of UFO experience. Now this is supposed to be allegory, and maybe it's just a story, but it's a pretty freaky one that's similar to even if it's just a story that's written, what would I say, 1861, even it's pretty close to those kind of this. So these people having encounters, even if, is what I'm saying, even if this didn't really happen to George Washington, it's still a writer writing about some of these kinds of encounters with beings just turning up. Okay. So maybe he's just writing it from his imagination, but isn't it interesting how close it is to people's, even just today in the news features we did earlier, we did an Ewok Sasquatch situation where someone was kind of paralyzed and weren't able to speak, and we hear about that in the ET alien kind of phenomenon, in the abduction phenomenon, where people try to scream but the sound won't come out. And that's being written about in 1861 as well, but in terms of like an angelic being. So I don't know, but let's read on a bit more. Well, let's switch it. Should we switch it up? How far have we got on this? So he's felt the strange sensations. It says moving and doing something and trying to became impossible. He had no volition. He tried to address her again, but it's as if his tongue was useless, as though it had become paralyzed. A new influence of mysterious, potent, irresistible took possession of me. See, I said it was like mesmerism or entrainment, and here they're using the word. The writer's using the word. It's took possession of me. All I could do was gaze steadily, vacantly at my unknown visitor. Gradually, the surrounding atmosphere seemed as if it was filled with sensation and luminousness. So yeah, we had the lights. So yeah. So they're describing those same kind of encounters, even though it might not strictly happen to Washington. People got those same descriptions going on through history. So what is it about trickster spirits? What is it about? What are these entities? Because again, we have, if we just switch to another article here, this is on lonerwolf.com. So from lonerwolf.com, we've got 11 trickster archetypes that provoke and heighten your consciousness. Okay, so what are these things? What are these trickster spirits and these messengers and these angels turning up and what are these prophets talking to? These are these non-humans then? Is this what we're talking about? Talking the other. We're talking to the other, the people from the spirit world, the people from, you know, the good people of the hill, the little people. Is it the place where they're coming from? You know, is it, what are these? Is it ET? What we're talking about here? So what I'm saying is that even if this vision of George Washington thing hasn't happened, we have these things of trickster spirits throughout history. So what are they? Let's have a look at some of this, because there's the classic ones of the likes of Loki and Pan that we'll hear about. But let's have a look at some of the influences, and let's explain for anyone that's never heard of this stuff what this thing is. Tricksters. We're talking about sort of entities rather than just calling a person a trickster. But this is what it is. So when trickster archetypes prance and prank their way through your life, it's time to pay attention. So tricksters defy duality. They are both light and dark, heroic and villainous, foolish and wise, benign and malicious. At the same time, they're lovable and they're also hateful. At the same time, they're friendly, they're also fearsome. You'll feel drawn to or repulsed by the trickster archetype. This is a clear sign that you need to explore the hidden parts of your nature a little more. In mythology, tricksters are portrayed as jokers, pranksters, clowns, rule breakers, alchemists, magicians, truth tellers, and wise fools. In psychology, tricksters are mischievous archetypes of a collective unconscious to shatter old paradigms and gleefully poke sticks at the sanctimonious beliefs of a stiff pretensions. These days, trickster archetypes still appear in cultural myths and dialogues. Tricksters continue to incarnate as characters such as Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream, Beetlejuice from Tim Burton's classic, The Mask, Cheshire Cat, Alice in Wonderland, the Mad Hatter, Jack Sparrow, the Joker and Batman, and Rumpelstiltskin. In our own lives, tricksters are represented by the class clowns and the anarchists and the comedians and the rule breaker harlequins that defy all worldly decrees and decorum. In a sense, tricksters are the ultimate pot stirrers and trolls of life. As destroyers of duality, trickster archetypes expose illusions. They challenge worldly rules and celebrate holy madness. For the very likable trait within them, there is equally a disturbing trait. For every form of provocation, there is a hidden lesson. So let's explore the lessons today. 11 trickster archetypes and the crazy wisdoms. So from the writer, there's explaining the first shamanistic encounter in the spirit world was with a trickster. Trickster, like any archetype in life, are powerful spirit guides that are facilitators of conscious expansion, which is the angle. If you're taking that vision of Valley Forge and a visitation, so we're just dealing with, there's more to the Valley Forge vision, but we just deal with this initial visitation of these beings. And so, yes, they're helping to be facilitators, which is the angle I'm thinking of from the Washington's vision. It seems like some guides appeared and he's had a vision of, 3 kind of challenges that America's going to face, which we'll get into a little bit later. So, but they've had these visitations and it's all got the same kind of flavor of all the sort of historical stuff. So anyway, so in the case of the trickster I encountered, is that the writer writes, in the encounter of the first entities in the spirit world, the spirit guide, the first ever one that they met doing shamanism, a shamanistic encounter of a spirit guide, the trickster they encounter was the ancient goat man, the god Pan. Guiding my vision, Pan's face changed and drastically every few moments to the happy, angry, sad, gleeful, suspicious, thoughtful, wizened, neutral, blissful, and ferocious every few moments. As I focused on the ever-changing nature of his face, I was guided deeper and deeper into my own inner underworld, my own hidden shadow. Ever since then, Pan has remained my primary spirit guide, reminding me of the importance of embracing my own inner trickster, multifaceted nature. Okay, so you could say it's like a lesson that you can be learning from yourself about seeing the different sides of yourself, a bit of a metaphor. Okay. But the trickster archetype aren't just limited to ancient Greek mythology, however. In fact, they entertain a place in almost every civilization known to man. So they're all over the place. They've all got them. And like I'm linking prophets into this as well. Religion's got prophets. All over the world got prophets. All right. Anyway, moving on with the article on lonerwolf.com. The tricksters. Tricksters are both man and anthropomorphized animals, which means anthropos, man, animals, morph them together, part animal, part person. So half man, half wild beast, you could say. Worldly and spiritual. God and goddess, a god and goddess. They bring with them gifts of illumination, playfulness, revelation, truth, and balance. 11 of the most common trickster archetypes known to man include Loki, as I mentioned myself, from Norse mythology. He was a shape-shifting god who was portrayed as playful, nihilistic, and self-serving. And then in African folklore, so we've got Scandinavia, now we've got Africa, much warmer, completely different weather, completely different culture, but hey-ho, they got one too. And Ansi, in African folklore, it was a sneaky, sly, but ultimately benign spider, god of mayhem. Japan, they go on too. Kintsu, or Kitsune. It might be that with an E on the end. But yeah, I'll say Kitsune. In Japanese mythology, there are trickster spirits that often appear intelligent and as mischievous foxes. In Nigeria, the Esu is a tale of a sneaky god of uncertainty and change. Krishna, the Hindu god, is portrayed as seductive and an entertaining supreme being. Saki in Brazil, Brazilian folklore is portrayed as a one-legged malevolent prankster dwarf. And that's interesting that the Portuguese went to Brazil in all this same, actually a little side note, because the Portuguese went to Brazil. The Portuguese went to the Americas, let's say then, and the Spanish did. And the Spanish and the Portuguese, going past Africa, as I mentioned, Nancy, used to talk about what they called monopods, which were these strange supernatural beings that would stand on the shores. They'd see them on Africa when they were going past Africa to get to other places and stuff. They used to report seeing these strange beings that seemed called monopods that seemed to have one leg, seemed to be like V-shaped, like humanoids, but like they said they had robes and like wide shoulders, and then the robes would go down into a kind of V shape where they've just got one leg. It seems kind of weird, doesn't it? But just as a little side note there, so because Brazil reminds me of kind of Portuguese and stuff. So I think they've got some shared languages. But anyway, so another trickster god. Greek mythology, Hermes, cunning, as a thieving messenger of the gods. Trickster animals, you get coyotes as trickster animals in native mythology. You even get a trickster animal as a rabbit. It features in American folklore. The fox, like Kumalisa in Bulgarian folklore, is a trickster spirit. And the raven is famous among Native Americans. So there are multiple tricksters across cultures all over the world, and a lot of these accounts, even in the Bible, I think Ezekiel and maybe somebody else, that encounters written about in the Bible, it seemed to me as if, they're talking about being like ascended to heaven, so to speak, but then it sounds like UFO and alien encounters. But it's okay, remember folks, it's okay to talk about UFOs now. And it's obviously then all the UFO folklore and stuff is valid to look at now. If it's okay to talk about UFOs, then what is this stuff? What is this stuff? Because he kind of saw Washington as, so we've looked a bit at what tricksters are then, and there's these kind of themes that come up, and they seem to be all over the world. And like I'm saying, religions have got prophets. There's this big important times where, there's an American Revolution coming up. There's a big war coming up, American Civil War, and there's the split between Britain and America, and it's like there's stuff going on. And according to other writings and other groups, this is all part of a bigger plan, which we'll get onto a little bit later on. But we'll just move back then we'll get back to this vision then. So he's had this uninvited guest, and George Washington has had this uninvited guest, some kind of angelic being. He's kind of frozen and stuff, but then he's been given these visions of the threat to America. And so there's these 3 threats that he has this vision of, which, like I say, we've got the disclaimer. It's supposed to be an allegory and not really about Washington, really, but maybe it is, right? We can entertain the idea without necessarily believing it. So I'm reading from medium.com anyway, so we don't have to worry about that anyway. So let's look at the first threat. So it says in the quotes, "Presently, I've heard a voice saying, 'The Son of the Republic, look and learn,' while at the same time my visitor extended her arm eastwardly. I now behold a very heavy white vapor at some distance rising from upon fold. This gradually dissipated, and I looked upon a strange scene. Before me lay spread out one vast plain, all countries of the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, America. I saw rolling and tossing between Europe, America, and billows of the Atlantic, and between Asia and America lay the Pacific. 'Son of the Republic,' said the same mysterious voice as before. 'Look and learn.' At that moment, I beheld a dark, shadowy being, like an angel, standing, or rather floating in midair between Europe and America, dripping water out of the ocean in the hollow of each hand. He sprinkled some upon America with his right hand, while with his left he cast some on Europe. Immediately a cloud raised from these countries and joined the mid-ocean. For a while it remained stationary, and then moved slowly westward until it enveloped America in its murky folds. Sharp flashes of lightning gleamed at the intervals, and I heard a smothered groans and cries of American people. A second time the angel dripped water from the ocean and sprinkled it out as before. The dark cloud was then drawn back to the ocean, in whose heavenly billows it sank from view. So how do we interpret this? You know, they said, what's that? A dark angel standing between Europe and America, chucking water on it, doing a bit of chaos. What is that? How do you interpret this? And some people, you know, have speculated this is going to mean that war. This is going to mean this. I mean, I don't know. There is a timeline. There is a timeline from 1861 for the Civil War. But which ones is which is hard to say. There is a time. I mean, there's the first threat. We'll read the second and third threat, and I suppose we can have a quick look at the timeline. You can always try and throw one in, see which threat's which. But the second threat is, a third time I heard this mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." So you got this same repeating phrase in the second threat. Maybe it's a bit like an alert bell. You say the same thing to alert people. Like you have a bell transmission at the beginning and end of a broadcast, so you know it started and then you know when it's ended. So the second threat. For a third time, I heard a mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." I cast my eyes upon America and beheld villages and towns and cities springing up, one after another, until the whole land from the Atlantic to the Pacific was dotted with them. Again, I heard a mysterious voice say, "Son of the Republic, the end of the century cometh, look and learn." At this, the dark, shadowy angel turned his face southwards, and from Africa I saw an ill-omened spectre approaching our land. It flittered slowly over every town and every city of the latter, and the inhabitants presently set themselves in battle array against each other. As I continued looking, I saw a bright angel on whose brow rested a crown of light, on which was traced the words Union, bearing the American flag, which he placed between the divided nations and said, "Remember ye your brethren." Instantly the inhabitants, casting from their weapons, became friends once more and united around the national standard. So some might say that's, that's Americans at a civil war. And that's, you are brothers, State of the Union, stop fighting each other. So that was the second threat he had in the vision, George Washington, although it's supposed to be an allegorical story. But some say that could, they're trying to interpret it as that. Who knows? Who knows? But we know there's these trickster spirits from around the world. And, this could be a part of a larger plan, it seems. I mean, there is a lot of planning going on. Just wanted to keep that in mind, bearing in mind the sort of historical context. We've had a spiritual war going on in Britain. A kind of banking, kind of royals war starting to brew between America and Britain as well. There's a lot of upheaval. Okay. And we've had prophets throughout history. I keep reiterating that. But going on to the third threat, because we've got a break sneaking up on us, so I'll read for this quick. The third threat from the vision of Valley Forge, George Washington, was, quote, "And again I heard a mysterious voice, same voice of the Republic, look and learn." So it's got the same line again to get your attention for it. Yeah, get your attention. Okay, so heard the voice again saying, "Son of a Republic, look and learn." And this time it said, "At this dark, shadowy, it just got a dark, shadowy angel straight away this time. So a dark, shadowy angel straight away coming in, got a trumpet in his mouth and blew 3 distinct blasts, and taking water from the ocean, he sprinkled it upon Europe, Asia, and Africa. Then my eyes beheld a fearful scene. From each of these countries arose thick black clouds that were soon joined into one, and throughout their mass there gleamed a dark red light, by which I saw hordes of armed men, who, moving with the clouds, marched by land and sailed by sea to America, which country was enveloped in a volume of cloud. And I dimly saw the vast armies devastate the whole country and burn villages, towns, and cities that behold springing up. As my ears listened to the thundering of the cannons, the clashing of the swords, and the shouts and cries of millions in mortal combat, I heard again the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." When the voice had ceased, the dark, shadowy angel placed his trumpet once more to his mouth and blew a long and fearful blast. And then it says, heaven intervenes at this point. Instantly, the light as 1,000 suns shone down above me and pierced and broke into fragments the dark cloud which enveloped America. At that moment, the angel upon his head still shone the word Union, and who bore the national flag in one hand and a sword in the other, descended from the heavens, attended by legions of white spirits. These immediately joined the inhabitants of America, who I perceived were well nigh overcome, but who immediately taking courage again, closed up and broken ranks and renewed their battle. Again, amid the fearful noise of the conflict, I heard the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." As the voice ceased, the shadowy angel, for the last time, dripped water from the ocean and sprinkled it upon America. Instantly, the dark cloud rolled back together with the armies it had brought, leaving the inhabitants of the land victorious. And then there was once more, behold, the villages and the towns and the cities springing up where I had seen them before, whilst the bright angel, planting the azure standard as he had brought in the midst of them, cried with a loud voice, while the stars remain, and the heavens send down dew upon the earth, so shall last. So the union shall last. I'll say that again. While the stars remain, and the heavens send down dew upon the earth, so shall the union last. And taking from his brow the crown of which blazoned the word union, he placed it upon the standard, while the people kneeling down said, Amen. An amen. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's just in time. We're right on time for a break. Isn't that amazing timing? We're back just after this. The Next Minds podcast with me, Lee and Martin. Don't go away.
Welcome to the Troubled Minds Radio Network and KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we delve into the mystical, philosophical, and the cosmic in our quest to uncover the unknown.
House Oversight Committee did vow to open hearings about UFOs.
Have you ever been called out as a weirdo, a misfit, or an outcast because you nerd out on topics like ghosts, extraterrestrials, conspiracy theories, cryptids, or anything that isn't mainstream? Do you love exploring different theories, both known and perhaps unknown? If so, join Serena on the Paranormal and Proud podcast and take a journey and see if these topics have more rabbit holes and explained away conclusions by the mainstream. In fact, why not explore yourself? Indeed, why not explore together? Shall we? Tune in to the Paranormal and Proud podcast with your host Serena on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting.
Environmentalists don't give a shit about the planet. They don't care about the planet. Not in the abstract, they don't. You know what they're interested in? A clean place to live. Their own habitat. They're worried that someday in the future they might be personally inconvenienced. Narrow, unenlightened self-interest doesn't impress me. Besides, there is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are different. The planet is fine. The planet is doing great. It's been here 4.5 billion years. You ever think about the arithmetic? The planet has been here 4.5 billion years. We've been here what? Maybe 200,000.
Watching our TV while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
Environmentalists don't give a shit.
We know things are bad, worse than bad.
And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat, that somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful blue-green ball that's just floating around the sun.
They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy.
Been through all kinds of things worse than us. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drifts, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, a magnetic reversal of the poles. Hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets and asteroids and meteors, worldwide floods, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages, and we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference?
Please, at least leave us alone in our living room.
Welcome back to the show, folks. Thanks for being with us on that little break there. So, yes, on with the show, Exile Minds podcast, talking about the vision at Valley Forge with George Washington having an alleged encounter. It's been stated by it's been stated by the at least ushistory.org that this is supposed to be completely sort of made up. This is a work of fiction published in 1861, and its author is Charles Wesley Alexander, published numerous allegorical stories featuring famous American figures. However, we looked at the vision that he described, that he's having this visitation that sounds suspiciously. We hear about through history, we have biblical accounts and angel visitations. They're very similar. Is this a writer writing about that kind of stuff? But what are these things? Because it's okay to talk about UFOs now. And that changes things. So if it's okay to talk about UFOs now, what are all these things and these visitations? Because if UFOs are okay to be talked about, the visitations are okay to be talked about, and that means all the past history of visitations, they can all be taken a bit more seriously. And when I was growing up and I was taught about the religion stuff and about Jesus, I was taught that was just history. That was just history. Just that's a fact. So is it? A lot of it is historical account. What is it? What's going on in the world? What's going on? Because it seems like there's these big long-term plans. And like, I forgot about the chat. I forget to look in the chat sometimes. But some good, great comments in the chat there. I'm getting some good feedback for the audio. Thanks for that, James. And yeah, and Enrico. And there's been a mention of Sir Francis Bacon in New Atlantis as well, OG Skywatch. And yeah, and countries deep into Freemasonry. And that's another thing. I haven't done a show on Freemasonry, actually. So that's give me another show idea. So thanks for that. Thanks for that. Checks in the post. It'll bounce. But yeah, so yeah, Freemasonry. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of complicated stuff that goes in with this. And I didn't sort of cram it all in like, but yeah, there was stuff going on. There's a lot of deep stuff going on in Britain and America, and kind of trying to create stuff. And straight up, keep saying it, magic's the most written about thing in all of science. That's when they were doing that stuff. That's those years, 16th, 15th, I suppose you could say more like the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. That's when we're transitioning. We're starting to figure out about alchemy and we're starting to figure out some chemistry stuff. Going back to the old alchemical, translating old alchemical texts, basically coming from Africa, Egypt, and parts of the world. So we're translating these ancient Greek stuff, this ancient, come from ancient Africa. So we start translating this stuff in the more, the Western civilization, modern, in those sort of regal times. And we're learning these things, learning about chemistry, starting to learn about magic, basically, starting to learn how to do things in the world. And like I say, we're having these biblical accounts, we're having these religious, that are supposed to be historical texts, talking about visitations and prophets, having these visions and getting information from angels and so on and so forth. And now we've got the UFO things coming in. And like I say, why are these archetypes there? Why these archetypes keep coming up? Is it all just psychological stuff? But no, because we have these UFO encounters these days. And so with the spiritual ones real, that's why I'm sort of getting at, because it makes them look more real, even if this particular encounter is where it's happened to Washington or not. Maybe we can't be quite sure. These things happened a long time ago, So what is it? What we're looking at here is the question I'm asking. And yeah, but there's an interesting sideways link into some Buddhism stuff that says stuff about America being part of an experiment. And America itself is kind of experiment. That's why I thought of it as like, perhaps it's like a prophecy within a prophecy. Because even if this stuff is completely just not to do with Washington and it was just a name thrown into somebody's writings, it turns out that America is part of a prophecy elsewhere, but through sort of Buddhism channels. Anyway, but it's thought of as it's like a one of the major parts of it's like part of an experiment. Okay, so we're going. So I know it sounds a bit wild, but just bear with me because there is a thing that comes with this. So there's a guy called Benjamin Kramer from from sheerinternational.org. They share the work of this guy called Benjamin Creme or Benjamin Kramer. It's Creme, spelled C-R-E-M-E. It's got the extra E on the end, so some say Creme, I think. So Benjamin Creme, sheerinternational.org. He's a guy that's supposed to have channeled. He's been contacted. It's a bit of a long story, but in Buddhism, they're saying that, look, there's lots of masters. Sheerinternational.org share this thing called the Ageless Wisdom Teachings. They share spiritual information, right? That's the same stuff that all the major religions are talking about, but they're saying it's from way back. It's like there's the original. They share the original source material for all the major religions, where they're all getting it from. And they're saying that it's been with us since the dawn of man, because some human beings at some point in history have managed to kind of, I don't know how you'd think of it, but ascend or whatever. They reached the end of human evolution. Some people have reached the end of human evolution at some point in history. I don't know how it works. Maybe it's happened in the future and they've come back in time, whatever. I don't know. But some people have become supermen and women. And those people have ended up having this kind of spiritual hierarchy where they're all enlightened and they fiddle with the earth. They don't interfere. They've got karmic laws and stuff. But anyway, so Benjamin Creme has talked about this a lot, and it's in his books, one of his audiobooks, and I found some excerpt. Managed to find a PDF of this audiobook that I've got, Benjamin Creme, about talking about Maitreya coming back to the earth, like the Buddha coming back, like the new Buddha's here, but it's everybody's Messiah. It's the Messiah. It's Jesus. It's what people are thinking of as Jesus coming back, or the Imam Mahdi or Muhammad coming back. It's like the big spiritual force that people have been sort of hanging on and waiting for. They share this stuff saying that that's happening now, that this guy's already here. And some of these other supermen and women, some of these other masters, eventually 40 of them will be coming forward and acting as mentors to teach the earth. And some of them are already here. You know, like especially one in Japan, one in Geneva, one in Rome, which is, you know, like the Catholic Church know about it, that technically Jesus is already back, sort of thing. But there's a few of them all over the world. That's what they're saying, is like about 13 of them at the minute. But anyway, so Benjamin Creme talks about this and talks about some of this, people having visions of stuff turning up. Happens to have it in one of his talks. So I thought I'll just play this little bit of a video, just so you can just get a bit of an idea what the guy looks like, and for the audio listeners, for what he sounds like, so you can hear the man talking about the world teacher Maitreya, which is the book that I had. So anyway, yeah, let's have a quick look at this Benjamin Creme. Well, I hope that the audio is going to work okay for this. I'll just fade that up there and we'll see how we go. Sorry about that. I don't know why the audio is not coming through this. I've got it all sort of coming from mine end. I don't know what's happening with that. Sorry about. Oh no, what a shame. I really wanted to go to play that. Okay, I'll just okay then. What we'll do is we'll just have a little bit of a read about him. Thanks for letting me know in the chat there. It's coming through on my like a meter reading, so I don't know what the problem is. But anyway, we'll sort that out for another time. Okay, so Benjamin Creme, I'll put the links in the description for Sure International. We've got plenty of YouTube videos as well, So you can check this stuff out, but I'll just read some stuff off for you then, so we can, I'll just get myself back up on here. Yeah, so I'll just read the little excerpt then that I found from this book. It's from page 50. Yeah, let's get it up. Where are we? Right then, so this is from Benjamin Krem's book, and this was, like I say, shareinternational.org, and this is the World Teacher for All Humanity, where he's talking about Maitreya, this the Buddha force coming back, and who basically, the idea is, to put it in a nutshell, that there's forces that go into people sometimes to help them, so you can use a person like a bit of a walk-in, and the person we know of Jesus is saying he had a kind of a walk-in and is super enlightened and whatnot, and his teacher was the Buddha, the new Buddha that's here now, Maitreya. So it's a really long, complicated, like, kind of story, but it mentions America and why this stuff's happening over these centuries about people mixing together, and how America is going to become a kind of unique thing. So from the World Teacher of the Ages by Benjamin Krem, this is from page 64, 65, and 66. And I'll just read this from the script. So here we go then. America brings together a bit of Europe. It kind of ties in with the vision a little bit, because as he was going to show on the video, the Benjamin Krem stuff, there's people that's had visions of the Mother Mary. There's been lots of that instances of these visions of the Mother Mary all over the world. In fact, let's just quickly cover that, because the audio kind of messed up. Yeah, so on about visionary stuff, whether or not these are a thing. Well, it's not just George Washington. So whether or not they happen, whether or not it really happened to him, these things do actually happen. So we'll look at some of these. So this is from Huffington Post, actually. So first one is one from 1531, Mexico. They've had a famous vision of Mother Mary. Mary is believed to have appeared in Juan Diego, in the Aztec convert in Christianity in 1531. According to the story, she asked that a shrine be built at her site of the apparition, so the image can be left inside of a cloak. The image was venerated at the Basilica Guadalupe. In 1830 in Paris, they've had a vision. So according to the tradition, Mary appeared to a young novice named Catherine Lebrun, who was part of the Society of Girls Charity. Again, in France, they've had a Mary vision in 1846 at La Célette in France, or La Célette in France. A group of pilgrims travel to a holy site in the French Alps where Mary is said to have appeared to two young shepherds. Again in France, in Lourdes, 1858. Pope Benedict VI blesses worshippers as he arrives at the Masabel cave in Lourdes Shrine, Lourdes in France. About 6 million people are drawn to Lourdes every year to play at a place where Mary is said to have appeared to a teenager named Bernadette Soubirous. Many of the pilgrims are sick and disabled and come to that spot in hopes of healing. In Ireland, there's a place called Knock in County Mayo. In 1879, many Catholics are believed to have seen, or at least 15 people saw Mary appear on the altar of the village chapel in Knock, Ireland, among the Joseph, John, and Apostle and the Lamb. So they've got a whole bunch of them there, underneath the Jesus on the cross. They've had more than one apparition all coming together, and 15 people say they've seen it, and that's in Ireland in 1879. And then there's the very famous one from 1917, Fatima in Portugal. The Vatican has called visions of Fatima the most prophetic of modern apparitions. So the Vatican is, is just saying, yes, this is one of the most prophetic modern apparitions. They're not saying they don't happen. This is accepted stuff. These visions happen. So, and these people appear. So a group of young children reported seeing the Virgin 6 times while they were tending sheep in Fatima. And again, another one just to show how many there are. In Belgium, in Boerang, in 1932 or 1933, it's unclear, but 5 children said Mary appeared to them at the playground at their convent school in Belgium. Again in Belgium, in Banno, 1933, on January the 15th, a young woman named Marlette Becco was reportedly standing at her kitchen window when she saw the Virgin Mary calling at her from the garden. She claimed that she saw the apparition 7 more times that year. In the 1980s, in Rwanda, at Kibeho, the Virgin Mary allegedly appeared to several high school children in Kibeho in Rwanda in the 1980s, and some believe she warned them of a river of blood that would flow across the country, which was thought to be the foretelling of the mass killings that would later sweep the Kiyobu during the Rwandan genocide. In Bosnia-Herzegovina, in a place called Majuj Gorge, in 1981, 6 children reported seeing visions of the Virgin Mary with a child in her arms. Unlike with the other sightings, some of the witnesses in this case claim they have continued to see the apparitions over the subsequent decades. As a result, the Medjugorje Gorge visions are contested with the Catholic Church, although the religion's local bishop has said that he doesn't believe the apparitions are authentic. More than 1 million pilgrims visit the site every year. Despite this, the Vatican has investigated the apparitions and is preparing to release its findings. But that's well, I don't know if they've come out and said anything about that. But yeah, so it goes to show that some of these apparitions are, they're really kind of doing the thing. They seem to be coming over again, keep doing the thing in history. So I don't know what you think about that. Yeah, let me try and play this video again. I think I might have figured out why. Has that worked? No, I don't think that's. I don't know. What a damn shame. I don't know why that's not working anymore. But yeah, so Benjamin Creme. So basically, we're saying, I was just going to read an excerpt from his book. So we do get these visions. We have had these sightings of like Mary and such, and we've heard about the burning bush and the biblical accounts, and there's other prophetic angelic visitations that are supposed to have occurred, and people have been given warnings and kind of prophecy stuff from the ET encounters as well. So I mean, I don't know, but anyway, reading from this book, Benjamin Creme, we'll just read this bit then to wrap the show up. It talks about there's a kind of experiment going on where different parts of the world are having the populations mixed together in different ways, and it's all to do with it's all evolving and becoming unified. So it goes on from, say, page 64, 65, and a bit of 66. America brings together a bit of Europe just lifted over the seas, British, French, Dutch, German, Scandinavian, Spanish, and others from other parts of the world, Africans brought in as slaves. You get a melange of which is unique. But this is part of a plan. You are part of a plan. You're all here for the purpose, quite apart from the. You're all here for a purpose quite apart from the reappearance of Christ. You are here because there are 3 great experiments being carried out in the world. One in America, one in Russia, and one in Britain. Here the experiment is to bring together these people, not from. Oh, sorry, that's the way it's scrolling down. It's jumping. Sorry, let me just go back and jump that again. So, yes, you are here because there are 3 great experiments being carried out in the world. One here in America, one in Russia, and one in Britain. Here in America, the experiment is bringing together these people, not from all over the world, but from Europe mainly. With few exceptions, they are brought into this melting pot and allowed to melt together to become whatever they become. You might say they are starved off as half the Swedish and half Scottish, as you ended up with a few generations being partly Swedish and partly Scottish and partly Iranian or partly Hungarian or whatever. So this is a big mix together, a big melting pot. You are the cheese that comes out of the melting pot, said Benjamin Creme. You are somebody else. You are American, something quite different from what you began. Eventually, out of all this mix, you will become a very distinct figure that will be American, unlike anything else. Russia has another plan. The plan there is for the grouping of nations to come together. Russia is even more huge than the United States, 1/6 of the world surface. There, Russia, as we know it, up to Moscow, and then there as far as you can look at from an aeroplane, as far east as you can go through the country after country, and south of Ukraine and all different countries. All of these that were part of the Soviet Union before it was broken up. Each now is an independent country, part of a federation of nations. The federation will be these different people living together in harmony, eventually not seeking to intermarry or to fuse and blend as you were doing here. And they're saying that's part of a plan. That's what they're supposed to be doing in Russia's kind of area, sort of preserving those particular nationalities and cultures they've already got there already. They're supposed to be sort of sticking, do you know what I mean? Like not being that multicultural as part of this plan is what he's saying. And then in Britain, the same is happening. The British Commonwealth, which used to cover the globe as colonies, now covers the globe as independent countries. We have a large population of Commonwealth countries and from South Africa, from various states of the East and West Africa, from all the states of the West Indies and a few North and South of America, and from India to Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. We gave Hong Kong back to the Chinese, but people come from Hong Kong to Britain, just as they've always done. There is a large grouping of people from all over the world in Britain. In some towns, you would think it was India. Every shop, every restaurant is Indian, and it's much more colourful. It is a completely different atmosphere from the town next door, which is as British as they come. This is the deliberate mixing of people as part of this plan. So it's deliberate mixing of people in this world together, but to not fuse and blend, but to be independently themselves as an Indian or Pakistani or an African, not isolated, but living together in clear, separate groups. And that is true. There are some estates that are like this kind of culture and some estates that are that culture right next to each other. And that is true for Britain, at least. They do kind of group people together. So but they're still next to each other, kind of thing. It's where we have like one block of a certain ethnicity and another block. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit like that. So it is kind of ringing true, as that is what it's like in Britain. But they've got their own separate religions and their own separate traditions. They're setting up shops, cafes, and restaurants and living in harmony. Not pure harmony at the moment, he adds. But the aim is that all of this is a representation of a larger part, that we should live together and learn to live together in harmony. This is where Maitreya is. And so it is easier, and perhaps with Maitreya coming, it's perhaps going to be easier for that to occur. The 3 experiments are all to do with the grouping of peoples. This is a melange here in America. That is one of the reasons why you have problems in America. When you bring diverse people together in numbers, what happens in America, you're bound to end up with problems. But eventually the mixing will all go on and the stirring will go on. And then American masters are stirring away. And it's a very interesting experiment. And if you know this, you're certainly answers a lot of questions that come up about the nature and social life in different countries, even when you look at other people. So I just wanted to drive home that point that according to some people coming from the sort of Buddhism angle and the Maitreya stuff, it turns out that ageless wisdom teachings, which is supposed to be wisdom that's far outdates all the major religions, they're saying that this is all supposed to be happening and it's all part of a melting pot and it's got to settle down. And then supposedly we're going to be getting not only more of these visions, these people are going to actually kind of turn up and try to just permanently be here for a while. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in the flesh, to help teachers. And so we'll all be having these kind of visions of Valley Forge, but Do you know what I mean? Being taught to the world, supposedly. That's what's all this upheaval that we're going on with now is supposed to be about. So, according to this stuff, this is the era for it, Age of Aquarius. So this vision of Valley Forge that George Washington may or may not have had, these kind of things, it seems, do happen. We do get these visitations and these apparitions, and the Buddhist side of things claims that these things are turning solid and coming to us for real. So hopefully, you know, I mean, I'm not really sure about what I think about channeling, but we've been doing it since forever. And if remote viewing, maybe channeling's a thing. Ascended master theory. Yeah. You have to wonder, don't you? You have to wonder what it's about. But anyway, it's the end of the show. I've got to start playing some music and do some stuff and try and stick to this radio clock. Try and stay pro. So anyway, thanks very much, OG Skywatch. Thanks, James. Jay, I hope you're catching me there in the background. Rico, thanks very much for listening to the show. Hope I've not missed anyone. And yeah, we'll have to sign out now. Exo Minds podcast with me, your incredibly famous host, Liam Martin. Please, I always forget to say, like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for listening to this show in the Exo Minds podcast, talking about the vision of Valley Forge, whether or not it's tricksters, fact, fiction, celestial visitations, or what, you know. Thanks, AJ Scalewatch again, Enrico, James, Jay in the background, hopefully. And I shall see you once I've faded this music in. I shall fade myself out, and I'll catch you all tomorrow night. 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT. You'll take care of yourself. I'll speak to you soon. See you later.
That's a horrible souvenir.
It feels like an altar to an alien god.
There he is. Your robot brought us to the worst place yet.
Everybody good? Plenty of slaves for my robot colony?
You, like Gimmer said, he fit in better with his unit. Thinks it relaxes us.
A giant, sarcastic robot. A great idea. I have a cue line I can use when I'm talking. Right? Yeah, probably help. Yeah, you can use it to find your way back to the ship after I blow you out the airlock.
Well, I think your robot's angry.
Do not go gentle into that good night.
Stage 2.
Old age, brave, close at day.
Not hearing. Choose your own
Rage,
whatever you want.
rage. It's dying of the light.
Yes. Whatever it is they want you to
No
do.
wise man at their end, no dark is right. Because their words had brought no lightning day. Do not go gentle into
Why
that
would you
good
do
night.
that?
Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
Look, I'm well aware my instincts aren't the Robinson way, but there's nothing wrong with choosing to save ourselves. We have a robot, we have an engine, we can go anywhere. Preferably a place where the ground doesn't try to eat you.
You're tuned into Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we peer into the future, embrace the power of AI, and delve deep into the conspiracies that shape our world.
Are you looking for a way to connect with your spirituality? Look no further than Spirit Magica Crystal Shop. They have a wide variety of crystals, from amethyst to obsidian and more, including crystal packs, unique deals, and amazing customer service. The products are made with the highest quality materials and are backed by their satisfaction guarantee. Spirit Magica Crystal Shop are committed to helping you find the tools and resources you need to live a magical life. So what are you waiting for? Visit Spirit Magica today. Use coupon code Troubled Minds, all one word, at checkout for 25% off your first purchase.
For many centuries, witchcraft has been considered evil, associated with the devil and all things dark. Let's break these stereotypes with your host, Matt Sal, at the Temple of the Owl. Let's talk about magic of the